Hello and welcome to Informed Entrepreneur Magazine. My name is Mike Baumstark. I'm a small business owner myself, and I provide content by interviewing business owners for the website. Today I'm interviewing Menzie Pittman. Menzie, welcome.
Thank you,
Good
sir.
to see you.
Nice to be here.
Menzie owns a company called Contemporary Music Center, and is it two locations at this point? Two locations. And so we're going to ask him some interesting questions and put him on the spot here and see if we can learn something from Menzie. Menzie, can you start out, please, by just maybe giving us a summary biography of where you came from and how you got to this position, and you can include in that how you actually got started with this company, Contemporary Music Center.
Sure.
Okay?
First exposure to music was my dad. He was a player back in the early 40s, jazz, big band jazz. So I grew up in a home where music was considered a normal conversation, part of the everyday. He played a lot while I grew up.
What did he play?
He played sax.
Oh, is that right?
Alto and
Wow.
tenor. And had a way on the weekends. He would. What I mean by a way is he had a manner. On the weekends he would go out to perform, and my big job was taking his saxophones to the car, and he would perform here and there during the week. He also was a builder, worked for the car corporation. So we had music around us all the time, and the reinforcement of music. So that was my first kind of exposure to it.
Yes.
Beatles came out, made a pretty big splash on Ed Sullivan, and I started to realize that I was very taken by the effect that music had on people.
And you watched those on DVD. You weren't actually watching them in person, right?
I was not live and in New York. I did get the DVD from my daughter for Christmas.
Okay.
They just put that out as a reissue. So
Yeah, I think I may remember it live, actually, but anyway.
I gave it to her and I said, if you want to see what all the screaming's about, start here. So, it's great that we can recapture that stuff.
Yes. And so you're from where?
Originally from Alexandria, Virginia.
Oh, is that right?
Mm-hmm.
So you've been local, and
Local
have you ever
local.
left and come back to the area, or you stayed here?
I've migrated west.
Okay.
West by 30 miles. But, west from Alexandria. Alexandria was a little bit slower back when I grew up. I guess I grew up there in the late 60s, early 70s. So, Beatle time and stuff, and Route 7 really was a 2-lane road, so a little bit faster now.
Now, are you a musician yourself? Do you play instruments? What do you play?
My instrument of trade would be drums.
Okay.
I sing.
Okay.
I
Are you
play.
going to maybe sing one little phrase for us?
Probably not if I want to keep the shop open. But the instrument of trade would be drums. But I can make sounds on other things, and I've studied other things. I studied sax for a couple of years, and I'm in and out of guitar and bass, just trying to find out more about how they work and what the premise is. And so when you talk to people about buying an instrument or something, you have some form of true reference as opposed to selling something that's not
Yes.
your background.
Yes. Well, having some interaction with your company, I was always impressed at just the welcoming atmosphere at this place. You in particular, but everybody here seems to be so welcoming. There was no difficulty working with you or the employees here.
Mm-hmm.
I know that because some of my kids have
Yeah.
done some music here before. Now, as far as starting Contemporary Music Center,
Mm-hmm.
tell me about that.
Well, I was a performer by trade for 20-some years, and it was necessary for me to stay local. We did a lot of traveling for the first 20 years. I was all up and down the East Coast and across the country, playing a lot of college circuits and concerts and stuff like that. I had a chance to do a project that was in a recording studio, and it was a songwriting project, original music project, and you needed to be here 2 or 3 days a week. So in the process of that, I needed to find some kind of line of work that would not be based in me leaving, but still based in music. So I started to dabble with teaching. I had the opportunity given to me by a music store to be their drum instructor, and I started with that. 3 years later, I had 65 students, and we had hours and hours worth of original music, and one of the fellows left to go to LA to try to see if he could get companies interested in it. I stayed local. The bassist in the band went on to be head of sales for PRS Guitars, and the guitarist I refer to is a fellow named Sam Catalona.
Mm-hmm.
He now owns Outlaw Music in Montana and has worked for the Gibson Corporation. So it's a pretty talented group of fellas. That didn't go where we thought it would go as far as the big record deal.
Mm-hmm.
So I continued to teach. And over the course of time, the shop that I was teaching at, the owner decided to get out and asked me if I wanted to buy it.
Was that this particular location? Or?
No, it was in Chantilly. It wasn't even where we are now. It
Okay.
was in a building that's since been torn down.
Okay.
But he asked me if I wanted to buy it, and I kind of went in kicking and screaming to the idea of trying to do it. I knew I had a good idea of what I thought should be done. I didn't know if I had every skill set, and I didn't know much about actually running an operation. That's probably a blessing in hindsight, because if I had really known what I know now, I probably would have passed.
That's true. Most business owners, I'd say.
Yeah.
That's the E-myth thing, you know. I'm not sure I can do this, but
Yeah.
I'm going to give it a shot. Right.
Yeah. Well, what you don't know is, they always say that you'll run into things that teach you sooner or later. And what you don't know is how people operate, what the challenges are of employees, staffing, finance, economy. You don't know any of that going into it. At least I didn't. So, we got into it, and we stayed with the idea that had initially worked for me, which was teaching. And I began to look for people that I had played music with that were local in the area that could also continue to expand the studios. When I took it over, it had 6, and now it has 27. And we're in the process of expanding downstairs in Haymarket with an operation that's going to be called 4410, which is actually the physical address of the building, and that's going to be based in performance. And so we'll have retail, education, and performance, as well as services and rentals.
I remember when you first brought that to my attention, I thought that's pretty cool, because in this area, I bet that would be popular.
Well, I think the idea is right. I can't say I don't have trepidation taking on more responsibilities in an economy that I don't see as that user friendly. But I think the community is still looking for one more thing. They like buying instruments and they like learning how to play them. But what I'm hoping to do is put together a community that teens find enticing to them. The big key for us has been the summer programs we've done, and we had such explosive growth in that last year. And it shows me that there's a kind of a void there. There's certainly a void for quality. There are lots of people that are popping up and giving kids things to do because they're basing it on financial gain. And that's terrific if you're a mathematician, but that's not really solving the riddle. The kids want something to do from a social aspect. They want something to do from a community aspect, from an interaction aspect. They need expertise to get that done. They need the equipment to get that done. We have access to the equipment. We have access to the vision. So I'm willing to take a risk on it.
Now, tell me, just in simple terms, what is it that's going to happen downstairs? It's going to be...
It's going to be a performance area that's dedicated space to... it's an open room.
Okay.
It doesn't have studios. Downstairs we have 12 studios, and there's lots of room down there, but it's all cordoned off into smaller...
Yes. So it's an additional area?
Right, so it's a third area, and it will be open, and the main thing it'll have is a stage at one side. It's going to be kind of in an I shape, so it'll have a stage that is set up and dedicated to performance all the time. So the inconvenience of having to set up a performance area or move things so you can have people come is going to be taken off the table, and it will be open and ready to have an audience.
How big an audience could be down there?
Well, I would say probably between 50 and 75 would be the expected, group that we would hope for.
It's a good crowd, yet it's still kind of cozy.
Yeah, it's we're not looking to do a concert venue of hundreds of seats. We did develop one thing this year that's been really important, which is a relationship with the Hilton Center in Prince William.
Okay.
We did our rock concert there this summer, and they were great. So I think this really lends us to have kind of a ramp-up stage that if we do have a show that we want to put together with successive groups that we've had, you can organize that and then take it to the bigger venue, which is just down the street.
Well, I would look forward to that. When do you anticipate maybe your open of that going to happen?
I'm hoping 90 days. I'm hoping
Okay.
3 months. We are just putting ink to the deal
In
right now.
March?
Yeah,
April?
spring. I would probably
Yeah.
say 1st of April is
Okay.
is a realistic window. We've been incubating it for a while. There are certain aspects of it that I've needed to have come together. I've
Yes.
needed the town's blessing.
Okay. Yeah, do you have that?
We do. They've
Good.
said we needed to improve airflow and things like that, so air conditioning is to be added, HVAC.
Okay.
And they're pretty excited about it. They think it's a good idea.
Super.
Yeah, so we've needed to do that, and I've needed to kind of pull construction into it. I've needed to get the terms I need to work with that aren't so scary that I won't do it.
Right.
The building owner is certainly supportive of the idea. The community, the one beta test I did was to talk to people like yourself or other customers that have come in and take them downstairs to show them the raw space before it's done. And the feedback we've gotten has been astronomical.
Well, at the end of this interview, I'd like you to take me down there and
Absolutely.
I'd like to see that.
Yeah, absolutely.
One of the questions that we ask business owners is, could you put together a couple thoughts and share with us what the most difficult thing about getting into or even being in business, what are a couple of the tough things that you deal with? Now, one of those that I'm going to give away right now is the government regulation, the taxes, the sort of the anti-small business atmosphere we all feel.
Yes.
So I know that's true, but
Sure.
perhaps other details that come to mind to you.
Well, I think starting your own business is a lot like a marriage. I think that it's pretty easy to get in, and once you're in it, then you really start to figure out what all the books are trying to tell you that you read and say, oh yeah, well that won't happen to me. So you get in and you're pretty excited and energetic in the beginning. I say this a lot when people ask me about business. I say the one statistic or fact that they leave out is that there's no off switch. So you get in and you start, and there are times where you're like, okay, how could I turn this off and take a break? And there's no off switch. So once you begin, your options are success or failure. And then success to me is a different definition than it was 25 years ago. 25 years ago, I had this grandiose idea of we'll build this and it'll be fantastic, and we'll change people's lives and we'll make money at it, and et cetera, et cetera. And success now, especially in the last 10 years, has come to be defined by we offer an experience to families that's unique. And the quality of it's unique, and it really serves a void in the community. Not only to sell instruments, we love selling instruments. We love selling you an instrument that's going to work for you and actually enable you to play. We love teaching you. But to take a family in with multiple children in the family and have them come to us and say, we want to learn about the art form, and we want it to be something that's important in our kids' lives. So when they get into other areas, they have that creative processing to draw from. So where I first got in to be in performance and then to teach somebody the mechanics of the instrument, I'm now called on a lot to discuss creative process. We go down to Washington once a year with the NAMM organization to work with leaders on Capitol Hill to keep the music programs as a core subject in the school, to educate them to the fact that the arts are a key to creative process. When I do the trade shows in January and July with NAMM, I'm asked to speak on a lot of panels about the understanding of creative process.
Isn't it true that there have been some studies that say musical instruments actually help increase intelligence, increase productivity in all subjects?
Well, the arts, to me, especially music, there are a couple of really funny areas. I don't know how much you know about I'm sure you know about the TED organization, where they have all these speakers come out and they have people like Ray Kurzweil will speak, big business forum. And they get into talking about areas that some people find peculiar, where they'll talk about things like whole brain learning, and they'll talk about learning through vibration, and they'll talk about learning or understanding what the right side of the brain offers and what the left side of the brain offers and what whole thinking is. And they talk about muscle memory, and they talk about cellular recognition. And when you're talking to an artist, that stuff is pretty much everyday conversation. But when you're talking to somebody that is not involved in the arts and you talk about cellular memory, they look at you as if you have 2 or 3 heads, and that, oh, you're out there.
Yeah, I'm drawing a blank on that myself.
Yeah. Well, basically repetition is a skill they use a lot in music, and through the repetition, you have the ability to. A simple term would be accept. A more complex term would be to understand that you accept on many levels. And one of them is cellular. One of them is that you have intelligence in more places than just your brain. And artists get this. That's why they have this amazing recall, even if they haven't played a difficult passage in years. So what ends up being something that we do now that I didn't think I would really be that involved in is getting larger groups to understand the impact of creative process, to understand how you can learn this. And music is the best key that I know, because it's so enjoyable that people will continue to do it. And music kind of works its magic both through emotion, coordination, hearing, sight, vocal. So there's so many levels of the person being used. It's one of the few things I know that you can hear, see, touch, express, have reaction to the expression. So it's something that's a little kind of off the main grid. But I see, as we go along in education, I see us kind of moving to begin to embrace that.
Excellent.
The techniques of learning, the computer has got a lot of that down now. So the technique of being a quick typer is no longer quite as demanding as it was. Everybody nowadays types because everybody's typing all the time. So skill sets have changed, and we have the immediate skill sets of the physical, and then we have the emotional or creative skill sets.
Great.
Being more embraced.
The other question that I like to ask is, we heard you state the difficult side, and I believe you said that there's no off switch, and
Right.
that's very, very true.
Oh yeah.
You're in this thing.
Head to toe.
If you get a week break without a phone or without texting, I've never heard of anybody being able to do that these days. You're just stuck in this thing. But the other question is, what do you think is a major success or part of the reason that you are very encouraged by what you're doing?
Right. We asked about restrictions, and I'll go back to that as well as the encouragements. One thing that has really changed, and I mean really changed, especially in the last 10 years, is the speed of communication. So in 1997, I put up my first computer POS system. And from 89 to 97...
Point of sale.
Yes,
okay.
And in 1989 to 1997, we worked on a cash register.
Yes.
And your technology was what they called a Z tape.
Okay.
And at the end of the day, you turned it to Z and you hit it and it gave you a total. Things have changed a lot since then because technology and the ability to capture data has exploded, would be a fair term, I think. So in that sense, communication is faster. So the advantage to a small business person is in 1997, companies like IBM, Hewlett-Packard, things like that, were the companies that had the big technology advantages, and small businesses couldn't afford that.
Right.
Nowadays, that's no longer true.
Right.
The downside to that is there's so much more information coming at you so much more quickly that you then have to decipher what is valuable information and what is information that is burdensome. So valuable information is when you send me an email and we have a professional discussion.
Yes.
Burdensome information is spam.
Yes.
They're both coming at you all day long.
Yes.
So you have to be really good at sweeping.
Yes.
You have to make decisions faster. Technology has taught us how to be faster. Over time, you develop an instinct that is either good or naive, and the longer you stay naive, the harder the job is.
Yeah.
So you talked about some challenges. I'll get to one benefit. When you try to take a break, it was a perceived mindset years back that you worked hard and you took a vacation. It's a perceived mindset from the entrepreneur set nowadays that you work hard and that there's no such thing as a vacation, but if you get a week at the beach, at least you have your smartphone. So at the end of the day, to stay connected to the trouble you will step back into when you return, it's wise to say, I'm going to take an hour a day and I'm going to review the information, call the offices, check in, and at least know where we are. Because if you take a full week off and you step back into, the step back in the water, so to speak, a lot of things happen in a week.
Yes.
And so you step back into what I would consider to be unpleasant circumstances because you don't know where you are.
Yeah, and that's a dilemma because you'd really like to have a full mental break. But
Yes.
I know that in my case, when I take time off, you really don't have a full mental break because you're still getting emails, you're still
Yes.
getting stuff.
Yes.
But sometimes you have to force yourself, like you say, for an
Right.
hour or so. Just put the phone down an hour. There'll
Right.
be nothing that's that
Well,
bad.
the what I see through professional associations that I've made as an owner is that the people that are successful have a different approach. They're not looking for a week off anymore. They are looking for quality time away from it, and they will take the time and do things that are odd meditations instead of sitting and humming. Nothing wrong with that. We think that's wonderful. They may jump on a bike and ride the mountains. They may go to the beach in the winter, and just, watch the water or whatever.
Yeah.
They may take a day and drive with a recorder in their hands to say, I want to be out of the office. I want to work on my business, but not necessarily in my business.
Right.
So there's a mindset that I think technology has given us that that advantage.
Mm-hmm.
It used to be you had to be at a computer to answer email. It used to be there was no email. It used to be fax, and before fax it was a telephone call. And so nowadays it moves much faster, but you can go away, take your smartphone, sit, clear your mind, and then look at the emails and answer the ones that you want.
Right.
Or need.
Let's see, a couple things in closing. What would be one thing you would say to other business owners that would be a key to overall success in business? And then I want you to share information, contact, website, if people are interested in talking to you further
Absolutely.
or learning about your business. So those things.
Let me go back real quick to one thing you asked me before that. You asked me of what I would tell people to expect. What are the challenges?
Okay.
And you talked about the financial challenges with regulations. They seem to be getting worse.
Yeah.
That concerns me. I shouldn't say worse. I should use the term more burdensome.
Mm-hmm.
So we don't yet totally know how healthcare regulations will take effect to small businesses, but I haven't talked to anybody in business, no matter what the business is, that feels that the landscape is getting easier.
Yeah.
They feel that the landscape becomes more challenging every day.
Yes.
So when people go in to start a business, the 2 or 3 pieces of advice I would give them, the first one is that if you're going to start a business, the best piece of advice I could give you as opposed to a business would be do something that you love. Do something that you would do regardless of if you're paid for it or not.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you do something you love when you're exhausted and it needs to be done anyway, and you've got one more hour to push and you really are finished, with effort, and you still have to continue, at that point, if you love it, it won't seem quite so burdensome.
Right.
If you do something that's about as exciting as filling out tax forms, then you're always going to be stressed at how much resistance you feel from them.
Yeah.
And I think when you do it that way, I think the biggest thing that happens is you become a happier person because you're not really working anymore. You're expressing what you feel and you're interacting with people. Another great secret for me personally, is to be around people. To be around people. I love what I do. I love sharing it with people. I love helping people. I love working with schools. I love going down to Capitol Hill and helping congressional leaders understand what we're doing and the importance of it. So to me, when I come in, it's not like, oh gosh, I got to go to work on Saturday. I still do some teaching. I still spend time a little bit behind the counter. When you're the owner, one thing is you have to do a little bit of every job,
right.
So you're not really pure or good at any one particular thing anymore. But I think that's a big key is to really be connected to what it is you are doing and why. And if you can do that, you'll become more mentally rested. If you don't, if you take on a task or a job to, if you don't love the cookies you're baking, if you don't eat them yourself, then you're just going to be at the ovens and sweating.
Yeah, and the joy is less, that's for sure.
Yeah, and so to me, that's a big part of it, because everyday circumstances will test you, because if you love what you do or not, the details of running a business are just the fundamentals of running a business. They are similar to every business you come across.
Right.
So it helps a lot if you can at least come from a place of offering something that makes you feel good.
Yeah, if you believe in what you're doing, it's extremely helpful. Let me ask you to share contact information,
Sure.
website or whatever. So you offer lessons and instruments as well as the other venues you're doing. That's what your
Right.
services are.
Right.
And as I look around your shop, you got some beautiful instruments around here. And I probably have bought one at one time or other here. Who knows? One or two. So some information about how to get a hold of you and website stuff.
It's Contemporary Music Center. We are located both in Chantilly and in Haymarket, Virginia. The website is www.contemporarymusiccenter.com. Contact phone number for Haymarket is 571-261-5000. For Chantilly, 703-817-1000. Facebook, we're on there. And we sell instruments, we repair instruments, we teach music, we teach groups as well as individual. We work on performance, and one fun thing, we just took kids down to Nashville this year for the first time to play at a place called Two Old Hippies, which is owned by Tom Bedell, and those are Tom's guitars behind us. That's his company.
Is that right?
And he's got two locations, one in Aspen and one in Nashville. And through the Rock Camp, we had a group that had been together in our sessions program, which is what we do in the winter. And in the summer, we do the Rock Camp, and these 7 kids really got a very good result. So we took them to a local place to have them tested out the week before, and then we took them to Nashville, and they had a great time, visited the Ryman and all kinds of fun stuff. So.
I can see that the joy that you're expressing to others that you need to have to be in business is certainly on your face as you're talking about this. I want to thank you for being with us today.
Thanks for giving me
Thanks
the opportunity.
It's been a pleasure. It makes me want to take an instrument. We thank you for joining us at Informed Entrepreneur Magazine and my interview with Menzie Pittman, Contemporary Music Center. Thank you.